Let's talk more about the banking and financial space, and along with the Yes Bank and IL&FS, I think what we're going to also watch out for is the RBI NBFC meet. Shaktikant Das, RBI's governor, is going to be meeting NBFC representatives today to discuss liquidity issues. Do remember the RBI has been constantly monitoring the same. They are going to take more steps on liquidity as well if required. That's the word from Shaktikant Das. For now, of course, they have conducted a series of OMO operations. However, he has flagged off, saying that he is going to need to exercise caution to prevent excess liquidity, very clearly, categorically stating that there's not going to be a situation of easy money as well. That is something that they are going to be wary of. However, some focus areas: first up, availability of funds; secondly, fixing structural issues, need for tighter regulation, asset liability management, as well as availability of financial data. These are some of the key topics that are going to be discussed. Okay, so we flagged off a whole host of banking names that are going to be in focus. So then I think it's just to propose to bring on board Lalitabh Srivastava. He tracks the BFSI segment very closely for Sharekhan. Lalitabh, it's a pleasure having you with us on ET. Now, I don't know which topic should I start off with first. So safe side, let me start off first with the IndusInd Q3 numbers. What is the key thing that you're going to be watching out for? I think one of the key factors that people will watch out for in the provisions. Okay, just before I go to Lalitabh, I think we should just flag off those flashes that are appearing on your screens. Very important, actually. It's coming in from agencies at this point. And a US government official has said that trade talks in Beijing have concluded. Do remember earlier on as well, we had agencies talking about US representatives flying back to the United States Wednesday night. That's Thursday morning as per the Indian Standard Time. And up until now, the feelers that we've been getting in, no official statements undoubtedly, but the feelers we've been getting in seem to be quite positive. Perhaps a final conclusion to the months-long US-Sino trade war that has taken place since, US actually did first off sound off the gong by imposing tariffs to the extent of almost more than $200 billion worth of Chinese products. Subsequently, of course, in the G20 meet, we had some relaxation, a temporary truce, if you may call it that. And now talks seem to have, at least that's what's being indicated, talks seem to have taken more of a fruitful turn. At least that's what we understand. Donald Trump as well has tweeted saying that talks seem to be going well. So this could definitely bode well in terms of a global sentiment point of view. Do remember, a lot of experts we've been talking about have flagged US-China trade war as one of the key global risks when it comes to the Indian equity markets perspective as well. All right, but continuing the discussion about the banking and financial space with Lalitabh Srivastava. Lalitabh, I was just talking about IndusInd Bank, and the key factor I think that everyone's going to watch out for is the IL&FS provision and the exposure that the bank has to the beleaguered entity.
Yes, hi, good morning. So clearly, IL&FS exposure would be keenly watched out for how the bank is going ahead with that. Last quarter they had taken around 270 to 80 crores provision. This quarter also we are expecting similar or slightly higher expectations on provisions on the same exposure. Also, it will be interesting how the bank treats it, because last time it was not an NPA. This time, let's see whether that slips. That said, I think on the asset growth side, how the asset growth, and especially the CV cycle and CV sales, how they have been behaving, I think those are the key things that we would be looking at this quarter.
Okay, just continue, since we are on the topic of IL&FS, we did have the RBI commentary coming in with respect to classifying IL&FS as an NPA. Is this something that you would be worried about as to what the impact would be? Would it inflate up the provisions figure for a lot of these banks significantly?
Actually, yes, the provisions would be elevated for some of these banks. My sense is that even for IndusInd Bank, for next 1 or 2 quarters, you can see elevated amount of provisions. Even though they might be going forward, there can be some recoveries or upgradations. But at least in this quarter and next quarter, we are expecting, or at least we are on a prudential basis, we are factoring in a rise in provisions.
Right. Lalita, say, they do a sufficient provisioning and there is a hit on the PAT that comes in. What after that? Do you think markets will focus on the numbers on pre-provisioning basis? If that continues to be solid in and around for any of these, top banks that have a little bit of exposure to IL&FS, you think markets will move on?
See, notwithstanding the near-term impact on results, I think long-term investors would be looking as always on the growth and the trajectory in the of growth in the overall business of the bank, and this case also being there, but then the overall business, if it is healthy and growing well, performing well, I think the market will digest that as well.
Right. What about some of the corporate banks that have been going up? You think the shift from retail to corporates, the likes of ICICI, Axis, would continue?
I think instead of calling that as a shift from A to B, my sense is that the corporate banks are looking to have much improved showing from a couple of quarters back that they have been performing. Some indication of the improvement in earnings can be expected in Q3 as well. So in that sense, that sector which was that segment which was not under investors' focus area, I think that is going to come back to focus for some time. I would not say whether this A or B category is better, but I think that category is certainly looking much better than what it was a couple of quarters back.
Okay, Lalitabh, I want to now bring your focus and attention to the Yes Bank case. Today is the board meeting. In all likelihood, we may not be getting the names out in the exchanges, but they are perhaps going to be submitted to the RBI for its approval, and subsequently the names would be announced on the exchanges. Nevertheless, what is it in terms of the characteristics of the selected names that would please the street? Would it be the fact that it's an external candidate or an internal, or the person's corporate governance history? What is it that could please the street?
Yeah, these are some of the things that one would be looking at. First of all, it will be the street as well as most of the investors would like this issue to be resolved as soon as possible. And even though we may or may not be aware of the names that are going to be finalized, the hope would be that this thing gets over as soon as possible, and definitely a new leader who comes in will have to match the caliber and capability of the leadership so far. So if that happens, then I think markets will take that positively.
All right. Great chatting with you, Lalitabh, and getting in your perspective on a whole host of banking names today that are going to be action-packed. Not to mention, of course, we are also watching out for the RBI NBFC meeting.